And we're on. This is the off season with myself and Marek Brave. Marek, how are you? There was a kind of a momentous week. A lot happened this week.
Including
We're going
a
to talk about it.
blockbuster trade. Yes, a little bummed, Alf. I'm not gonna lie about it. I'm not gonna sit here and tell you I'm super stoked about it. Obviously, we're talking about the Jaylen Waddle trade from the Miami Dolphins to the Denver Broncos. Now, John Eric Sullivan got himself a haul. He really did.
Yes.
They traded Waddle in a fourth for a first, a third, and a fourth. Right, that gives them
Mhm.
11 picks in the draft. As we stand right now,
7 in the top 100.
yes,
7 in the
7 in
top
the top one,
100.
and there could be more. There could be more, right? We could see more marquee names leaving the Miami Dolphins, although Adam Schefter came out today and said the Dolphins are turning down any trade offers for Devon Achane, which makes me wonder if that's code for we're not receiving the high-priced offers that we would need to receive in order to actually move on from Achane. I hope they don't move on from Achane, but I hope they wouldn't move on from Waddle either. I get it. I absolutely get it, right? When the trade first happened, I said, no, 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 no. Under no circumstances, I don't care what the return is. I don't want to trade Jaylen Waddle. I'm a big fan of Waddle. My children love Jaylen Waddle. My 10-year-old son, his favorite player is Jaylen Waddle. This is kind of like his first heartbroken experience as a sports fan, seeing his favorite player leave the team. So I was a little bummed about it, and it sucks because I think we talked about it last week or the week prior that, hey, the Dolphins, after signing Malik Willis, they might not be as bad as some people predicted they would be this year. Obviously, with Tua Tagovailoa gone, and you were kind of staring Quinn Ewers in the face as the starter of this team, wasn't a lot of hope regarding their 2026 outlook. But then they signed Malik Willis, and you're looking at the offense. You go Willis and Waddle and Achane, and you got a couple pieces on that offensive line with Patrick Paul and Aaron Brewer. And if Austin Jackson can stay healthy and maybe we draft a couple guards, I don't know. Could be a sneaky good offense. And then they go and they do what they did yesterday. They get rid of Jaylen Waddle. There's no legitimate pass catchers on the team, outside of Achane, who's a running back. And those hopes got dashed again. Obviously, it's March 18th. There's still plenty of time before the season kicks off. We got an entire draft to get through. The Dolphins can add wide receivers in a good wide receiver draft, mind you. They could trade for a wide receiver. There's some big names on the market. There's time to fix that unit. I get why they made the deal with Jaylen Waddle. It's a couple years before the Dolphins feel like they're going to be competing again, relevant again. By that point, Jaylen Waddle's damn near 30 years old. He's expensive. He's been banged up injury-wise the last few seasons. He's only gone over 1,100 yards receiving a single season in his 5-year career, and he's been under 1,000 yards over the last 2 seasons. So to get a first, a third, and a fourth for a player like that, I see why Sully made the move. I do. I absolutely do. But it bums me out, man. It bums me out to know that this isn't that reset that we were talking about. This isn't just a quick little rebuild here. It feels like a full-on rebuild. It feels like a full-on tear down to the screws and build it back up from there. And you got a few guys on the roster that I feel could be on the trade block: Zach Sealer, Jordan Brooks, Achane. Even though they're saying they're not going to trade Achane, if somebody comes and offers a first and a second round pick, he's gone. He's out the door. You better believe it. So I don't know. How'd you feel about the Waddle trade, Alf?
I thought that there was always the possibility, like if they could get their asking price, that it was going to happen. If you remember, John Eric Sullivan did an interview with Travis Wingfield where he name checked 4 players, and then the players that he named were Devon Achane, which is, I guess that's good for Achane, Jordan Brooks, good for Brooks, Aaron Brewer, and Patrick Paul. He didn't mention Jaylen Waddle.
No.
So that's pretty much all you needed to know. I think he had it in his head the whole time that, like, this is something we're going to do if we can just get our price. And man, it's a haul. Like, I wanted to keep Waddle, but as soon as I saw what he got for him, I'm like, yeah, like, this is something you got to do. And look, Tankathon had a thing where the Miami Dolphins went from the 26th most draft capital to second in
Yeah.
one move. So now they only trail the Jets in draft capital in the entire NFL. So yeah, if you're going to rebuild the team, like you need draft picks, and that's what they have. And I don't think that they weaken themselves considerably. Like if they just sit around and do nothing at the wide receiver position, then of course, they weaken themselves considerably with this trade. But they got 7 picks in the top 100. They're going to do some things to try to make this wide receiver core a lot better. So I'm not as, hopeless as others are on this. Now, am I talking about playoffs or anything like that? No.
No.
Are they going to make a run at 500? Probably not. They're going to be in that 6-win range, maybe. They're not going to be good. But I think that they're still right on schedule for 2027 to be a season where they're going to be interesting. They're going to be maybe playoff good in 2027. As of right now, they have $107 million in cap space coming to them in 2027.
That's a lot of cap space out, but who do you think they're going to spend it on? If they do end up trading a Jordan Brooks or an Aaron Brewer or Devon Achane, like it's not the Green Bay way to spend big in free agency. Very, very few times have the Packers done that over the last 20 years, Do you think Sully, he wasn't the guy in charge in Green Bay. He was under the guy who was in charge. He was the assistant, so to speak. Do you think maybe he would differ in philosophies where he would go out and spend big bucks on a few free agents to bring to the Dolphins to round out the team?
Well, first of all, you already mentioned some of the guys that he is going to spend some of that money on, namely Jordan Brooks, Aaron Brewer, Devon Achane. Like, extending those guys is going to cut a little bit into that money. Not too much, but it's going to cut a little bit into that money. So let's say that you're going to clear somewhere around $70 million in cap space to play with in 2027. Obviously, you want to roll some of that over for another offseason. Okay, you want to keep your cap situation healthy, but you're not going to roll over $30-40 million. You're talking about rolling over maybe 10 to 15 is what you're going to leave unused after you pay all of your draft picks and you have your emergency fund for the season. So you're talking about spending somewhere around 40 to 50 million on players. I understand that it's not the Green Bay way, but it's also not the Green Bay way to be non-cap compliant, right? You got to spend the money on something. That's why I get a kick out of Dolphin fans that are like, oh no, don't pay anybody. And like, you understand, you eventually have to pay somebody. You're currently paying nobody. As of right now, you have cap commitments to Zach Sealer, Malik Willis. That's the list. We're done. Those are your cap commitments going forward. Zach Sealer, who might not be here, and Malik Willis. So yeah, start working on some of those extensions. And remember, not that the cupboard will be bare, but they're going to have the opportunity and they're going to see the opportunity to probably add a couple of starters in free agency next season to make the team that much better after this one season. So
Alpha, I caught that little slip in there. You said if Zach Sealer is here, do you have an inkling that he might not play another game for the Miami Dolphins? Could he be traded here? Could he be the next name on the trade block?
Well, they're going to do it. They have to do it past June 2nd.
Okay.
Because it just can't take the cap hit by trading him before June 2nd. So that's a post June 2nd thing. I don't think he has too much value. He's a little bit more aged. He's expensive. Expensive relatively speaking. Like, he's not a Christian Wilkins expenditure, but he's not cheap either. So yeah, past June 2nd, I could see him getting moved out for draft compensation. Remember, that will be for draft compensation the following year for 2027. I could see something like that. would it make any sense to do that, or just have them play out the season and make it a little bit simpler to dump them the following season if you wish to do that? I don't know. We shall see. But I don't see it as hopeless as others see it. And as far as tank talk, no, they're not tanking. Like we talked about on the podcast, they identified their quarterback. It's Malik Willis. So nothing that they've done has been a surprise, really. John Eric Sullivan said, first you get the quarterback, then you build around him. I happen to disagree with that for the most part. I like a bridge quarterback while I build the team, and then I hand over a ready-made team to a rookie quarterback. They have a different philosophy, and I understand their difference in philosophy, because the difference in philosophy is sometimes you hand a ready-made roster to a rookie, and the rookie is not good. You kind of implode that ready-made roster, right? Guys that want to play for a rookie that's just not good. So we shall see. I think that John Eric Sullivan has gotten off to a pretty damn good start here as general manager of the team. And if Jeff Hafley is going to be any good, and I've said this before, and some disagree with me, even on my own podcast, if Jeff Hafley is a good head coach, we'll be able to assess the roster and assign a win number to it. And if he goes below that win number, then maybe he's not such a good head coach, and he should be, I wouldn't say the hot seat, but we should keep a close eye on him for 2027 when the roster is going to be much more improved. But moving on to something else that kind of caught my eye this week. If you're on Twitter and you followed the World Baseball Classic, did you watch the World Baseball Classic?
Oh, I did, Alf. I watched it last night to the bitter end.
A lot of Canadian fans are living vicariously through Venezuela of all people. And I'm gonna use this show, and I haven't done it on Twitter, but I probably should. If I do it on Twitter, I'll get 1,000 mentions. But I guess I'll use the show to tell Canadians this: we're happy for Venezuela winning. We're not happy when you guys win. So there's a difference here. So if you want to celebrate and dance around the campfire and live vicariously through Venezuela's victory, then go ahead. But it's kind of sad and embarrassing, if you ask me.
They're still mad over the Olympics, huh? Over that hockey final.
I don't have a problem at all, with the United States losing to Venezuela. I have a problem with Aaron Judge, his last 3 at-bats in that game. That was just bad. They couldn't hit. I
have a problem with Mark DeRosa's. Yeah, and Mark DeRosa's managerial decisions were baffling me, right? I get it. Cal Raleigh wasn't having a World Baseball Classic for the ages, but Will Smith wasn't doing anything in that final either. And you had an opportunity to bring in somebody who hit 60 home runs last season and tie the game up. And DeRosa, twiddled his thumbs and wasted the opportunity. If it wasn't for Bryce Harper's home run in the 8th, that would have been quite an embarrassing finish for Team USA. As it was an exciting finish. Harper was a hero for a moment, just a brief moment before Venezuela took the lead again in the 9th. But it was a hard-fought game, and that's what happens when it's a one-game series. It's a win and move on, or in this case, a win and win the championship, or you lose and you go home. And that's not how baseball is played in the MLB. That's not even how baseball is played during the regular season. You're playing a series, a minimum of 2 or 3 game set. But hats off to Venezuela. They got the win. They got a damn good team. They got really good players on that squad. And they left with the championship, and the USA took home second. There's no shame in that. Obviously winning first place is much better. We all know that. But it was a very exciting tournament, and I think it was a very eye-opening tournament for fans around the world, right? I think baseball's on the upswing. I think baseball's making a comeback. I think there's more people interested in baseball now, these last couple seasons, than there have been, gosh, probably the last couple decades, maybe longer, in baseball. And we got this work stoppage on the horizon, not this year, but next year. And I'm really hoping they can avoid that. Baseball always seems to shoot themselves in the foot when it comes to maintaining popularity. And you'd hate to see them, ruin this upswing that they're on right now. But so far, so good. Baseball's looking very healthy heading into the regular season for MLB starting here. What, next week?
Yeah. Next week. It's in
a
about
week from
8 days.
today.
8 days from today's show. So yeah, as far as the tournament, I would make a couple of changes. Like I've always liked the double elimination tournaments.
Mhm.
You have a winner's bracket and a loser's bracket. For those who don't know, if you watched the College World Series back in the day, it would be a double elimination tournament, meaning you had to lose twice to get eliminated. If they would have been using a double elimination format in this, let me see how it would have gone, because the United States beat Canada, and then Italy beat Puerto Rico, right? So then Canada would have played Puerto Rico, and then the United States still would have played Dominican Republic, but after beating Dominican Republic would have been playing Japan out of the losers bracket, and the United States would have been playing Venezuela. So then whoever would have won, Japan and Dominican Republic, would have moved on to the championship game, and the United States had beaten Venezuela a second time. Then it would have set up the United States single elimination against the winner of Japan and Dominican Republic. So I like a double elimination format. I understand why they're making it single elimination, because they don't want to bite into spring training any more than they have. But if you could go every day and just put one day randomly during the week, which is essentially a Major League Baseball schedule, and add a week to the World Baseball Classic and make it double elimination, and it'll be a little bit more fair. But I understand what they want to do. They want to have the randomness of it.
Yeah.
They want Venezuela to win,
Sure.
But for example, if both teams, because it's possible in a double elimination tournament that the two teams that make it all the way are undefeated, meaning that once they reach the end, they're essentially playing a best-of-3 series, right?
Which I think should be done anyways. Even if you're going to do single elimination all throughout the tournament, once you get to the finals, I do think it should be minimum best-of-3 series to determine a winner.
Yeah, I don't. That's what they do in the College World Series. So, yeah, why not do something like that? But other than look, as far as Mark DeRosa, I did not mind Whitlock in the 9th, except I will say this. Once you tied that game, you had Venezuela over a barrel. They had 2 arms left, and they had the condition on Palencia that he could only pitch in a save situation, right? So Venezuela had 3 arms left, 2 of which were inferior to Palencia. So they could use Palencia in a save situation, which is what they did, right? So you're obviously trying to keep them off the board and trying to get your last crack at it in the bottom of the 9th, right? Why not throw Mason Miller out there to make sure you hold them down and you take it to the bottom of the 9th, 2-2?
Yeah.
Right? So, yeah, that's what I would have done. But, he went with Whitlock. Whitlock did not have his best stuff. He gave up the run, and that allowed Venezuela to use their best closer in the 9th. That's the move that I think was a little bit off. He also fell in love with using Trevor Rogers. Trevor Rogers was not very good toward the end of the season last year with the Mets. Trust me, I know. And he did some weird things. Like, he pitched Trevor Rogers with a guy in scoring position and nobody on first. The reason you use Trevor Rogers is to throw ground balls. You don't want to throw a ground ball there with somebody on second with 1 out. You know what I mean? Because the ground ball finds a hole, and that's a run. He ended up getting a pop-up, which is odd, right? But, if there was somebody on first, I would understand it. But, he got away with it, and he pitched well and got out of that jam. But, yeah, if you're gonna do anything else, I guess Mason Miller would have made a little bit of sense. That's
Yeah.
that's the only thing I can really fault DeRosa for. I think that was a mistake. And yeah, Cal Riley, I understand he wants Will Smith to handle all the pitchers. Screw it. I want my 60 home run guy
Yes.
to get at least one at bat in the biggest
Yep.
game of the tournament, right?
Yep. And, Aaron Judge did the team no favors. Kyle Schwarber was 0 for in that one. And either way, it's all said and done. You can't go back. You can't redo. It would have been nice to see the USA take gold in hockey in the Olympics, win the World Baseball Classic. Same year the country turns 250 years old. That's quite the storyline, but it just wasn't to be. So, they'll turn around next time and try to get it done. But it is what it is.
All right, we're going to go to break. And when we come back, we're going to talk Ronda Rousey and some MMA. But first, let me tell you about Underdog. Underdog Fantasy. The tournament is back. The upsets are inevitable, and Underdog is the best place to get in on all the action. Playing on Underdog is easy. Just pick whether your favorite player will go higher or lower on stats like points, rebounds, steals, and more. Get your picks right, and you can win up to 5,000 times your cash. Hurricanes play on Friday. I like the Hurricanes. I like Iowa State. I understand that a lot of people don't. I watched Iowa State play all season long, and they look like one of the better teams to me. I also like Arkansas. I like Michigan. But Iowa State is, of the higher seeds, they're the ones who are getting the least amount of respect, and they're the ones who I like the most. So download the app today and use the promo code 3YARDS. That's the promo code 3YARDS, that number 3 yards, to score $50 in bonus entries when you play your first $5. That's promo code 3YARDS. Underdog. Make picks, win money.
Be 18 plus, 19 plus in Alabama and Nebraska, 19 plus in Colorado for some games, 21 plus in Arizona, Massachusetts, and Virginia, and present in a state where Underdog Fantasy operates. Terms apply. See assets.underdogfantasy.com/web/play and get terms _DFS_.html for details. Offer not valid in Maryland, Michigan, New Jersey, Ohio, and Pennsylvania. Concerned with your play? Call 1-800-GAMBLER or visit ncpgambling.org. In New York, call the 24/7 HOPE line at 1-877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY 467-369.
And we're back. I don't know if you've been paying attention to what Ronda Rousey is doing as of late, Merrick, but she's making the rounds. First of all, I guess we'll talk a little bit about the videos that she's releasing. She looks fabulous in her workout videos. Gina Carano does not. So maybe Gina Carano's sandbagging a little bit. Gina Carano, she can throw punches and she looks great throwing the punches. She looks great, period. But you can see she's a little bit flat-footed, and there's some fighters that are putting out some critiques about like her pad work out there. And this is something you know a little bit about. Ronda Rousey is not that far removed from actually competing in something athletically. What was the last time she was in wrestling? That was what, 2 years ago, 3 years ago?
Yeah. Somewhere around there.
Did she have a child after she left the WWE or no? Or was that before?
Great question. I'm not 100% sure on that.
Well, she looks absolutely fabulous, even with her pad work, which is not usually what she's actually really good at. But she's slim. She's like in her fighting weight already, which is about 145 pounds. And Gina Carano looked a little bit slower, like her footwork is a little bit off. She looks like somebody that hasn't fought in 17 years, right? Now, the differences are 39-year-old versus a 43-year-old. The video, first of all, I would have put out that video of me looking that bad if I were Gina Carano. But is there something to be said for, and I know you don't train MMA fighters or boxers, you train wrestlers, but somebody who's been out of it in actual ring, actual competition for a long time, is that something that takes a really, really long time to get back? Or is that something that is like, it's like riding a bike, you never forget.
It's funny you use that reference there, riding a bike, getting in shape, running on a treadmill, doing a workout. There's nothing that you can do athletically or physically that's going to replicate the sport that you're trying to compete in, right? The only way that you can get in shape for, in my business, professional wrestling, is to do professional wrestling, right? So you can run 10 miles a day, you can bike 20 miles a day, you can hit the gym 5-6 days a week. You're still not ready to compete in a wrestling ring, even though, my business is scripted, it still requires a certain level of conditioning and a certain level of athleticism. You're not ready until you've done it, right? We'll say that there's a difference between being in shape and being in ring shape. And I doubt there's little difference between wrestling and MMA in that regard. It just requires a certain type of cardiovascular endurance that you can't replicate by doing anything else. I would say the closest way to replicate it would be doing some HIIT workouts, right? High intensity interval training. That is probably the closest thing that would replicate a wrestling match or an MMA fight, and until you're doing it consistently, you're not going to know if you're ready to do it. So there's probably something to be said about Carano having such a long break between her last fight and now this upcoming fight against Rousey. And you're probably right, Alf. I bet Ronda looks sharp right now and looks like she's ready to go, where Carano's probably trying to work back into that shape still because it's been so long for her. So we'll see if she gets there. But from what you're telling me, it ain't looking good so far.
No, she has 2 months. She has 2 months to get into, into that shape. I have no doubt that she's going to get into shape. My doubts are if she's going to gain some of her skill that that she lost over 17 years. Is that going to translate? She's going to bring all of that back all of a sudden. Like I said, Ronda looks fabulous in her videos that she's put out working out, and Carano does not. Although Carano she looks fine. She looks really, really good for what it is. It's 17 years outside of the octagon. Now, Ronda Rousey showed up on AEW, and I don't know if you saw any of that. And a lot of AEW fans are like, "Oh, she's there. She's with AEW now." And I'm like, whoa, slow down. She has a fight in 2 months. If she's actually going to wrestle and fight Gina Carano, I'll be extremely impressed. But what do you make of Ronda Rousey as far as like her persona? Everywhere she goes, she leaves, and she then goes on YouTube and does an interview or a podcast where she essentially rips everybody that she associated with before. Like, she's the most unlikable person in combat sports and professional wrestling, maybe. Besides the obvious ones.
Yeah, she loves to burn those bridges, doesn't she? Burning the boat. She ain't coming back. I'm not entirely sure she understands how the professional wrestling business works. You know what I mean? Like, she takes things too personally. Sometimes somebody's going to cut a promo against you and they're going to say some mean and terrible things. That is in the interest of making money. That is not because they truly feel that way about you, right? They are trying to embellish and outlandishly speak things that may not necessarily be true, or maybe there's a little glimmer of truth and they're going to amplify it in order to talk asses into the seats, right? If we create a conflict that appears realistic, fans will spend their money on tickets. They will come to watch the fight, and everyone will make more money, right? If we sit here and consistently say, "Oh, well, you're a good fighter, but so am I, and let's go out there and see who's the best," that gets boring. People don't want that. This is the conflict business. Whether it's MMA, whether it's WWE, whether it's AEW, it's the conflict business. You are selling conflict, right? And if you think WWE or professional wrestling, if you think we're the only ones embellishing things to sell tickets, you're sorely mistaken. Boxing does the same thing. MMA does the same thing, right? So yes, I'm not entirely sure that Ronda Rousey completely understands that when people are saying mean things about her, they don't actually mean it. They're not trying to take shots at you to make you feel bad as a human being. They're trying to sell tickets and make money. So I'm not sure she ever got it, and hats off to her. When she was performing in a ring, in a WWE ring, she more than held her own. She was solid. She was really solid for how little experience she had in the business. It takes a long time to get good at professional wrestling, and she got pretty good at it pretty quickly. So kudos to her for that. But if she's going to go to AEW and think that it's going to be any different there, and that they're going to treat her with kid gloves on, she's got another thing coming. That's not how it's going to work there. I think AEW wrestlers fly off the handle and work themselves into a shoot far more than WWE wrestlers do. So if she thinks she's going to go to AEW, whether she is or not, if she thinks she's going to go there and have an easier time, she's probably mistaken in that regard.
Yeah, one thing about Rousey, and I don't know if we believe some of the wrestling YouTube channels or whatever, but you know who her husband is, right?
Yep.
Travis Brown, big dude. He's about 6'4", 250 pounds. Like he'd be pretty good in a wrestling ring. There's a reason why he never showed up on WWE, because she was pitched certain things. First of all, she was brought in as a babyface. If you remember, Ronda Rousey used to be smiling all the time, shaking hands, kissing babies. She was basically a white meat babyface, and I don't think that really suited her too much.
Supposedly, she's a real life heel, baby.
Yeah, supposedly they wanted to use her husband in storylines, and she objected. What do you think about that? Like when a wrestling promotion, I guess, buys a wrestler and thinks that they're getting your whole family.
Hey, this business is wild. This is sometimes the professional wrestling business is the wild, wild west. You know what I mean? Anything goes. And we've seen many, many times in professional wrestling where real life drama can translate on screen pretty damn well. I mean, look at the whole Edge, Matt Hardy, Lita love triangle that was happening behind the scenes. They made one of the best storylines in professional wrestling history out of that real life personal drama between those three. So, I mean, Rousey's well within her rights to say she doesn't want to do that. I bet Travis Brown would have enjoyed doing that, getting on TV, making a little scratch himself, making a name for himself in that way. But again, it might just be another indicator that Ronda Rousey doesn't exactly know how the professional wrestling business works, and she wasn't willing to play ball, so to speak.
Yeah, she also had that thing, and I guess we'll leave it here with Ronda. She had that thing where like she decided she was going to protect her character, and the way she was going to protect it is by saying, "I'm actually not a character. I'm Ronda Rousey, so I can't lose to some of these chicks."
Oh man!
And supposedly she did that. I think Liv Morgan was one that she supposedly refused to lose to. Like she says, I'll lose. And if you notice, and I'll never believe it in a million years, when she lost to Becky Lynch, she pulled that Hogan thing where he would kick out at 2 3/4 and be like, "Oh no, I got screwed." Yeah. I think that she did that on purpose. Do you think so too?
I don't have any inside knowledge on that, but I will say through conversations I've had with people who might be involved in situations like that, let's just say Ronda Rousey isn't the most well-liked human being in the professional wrestling business, and there are legitimate reasons for that.
Yeah, like there's nothing wrong with losing with the spot that she was put in, right? It actually looks worse that she kicked out at 2 3/4. You know, it actually looks bad. For a main event.
You put the heat on the ref, you put the heat on the company at that point. Everybody's scrambling to figure out where to go from that. So sometimes you just got to play ball. You know what I mean? Like, it's wrestling cyclical. You're on top, but you're not always going to be on top. Eventually, you got to come back around and work your way back up to the top position. But she just wanted to be on top, stay on top, because she thought, well, in real life, I can beat all these girls' asses. Well, guess what? This isn't real life. This is a storyline, right? In real life, Thanos snaps his fingers and all the Avengers are obliterated, right? They disintegrate into a million pieces. But it's not real life. We're trying to tell stories. We're trying to excite people, right? We're trying to get people to spend money on a product that they know isn't a legitimate sporting competition, right? So sometimes you sell and you tell stories that are a little unrealistic. Do we think Liv Morgan could beat up Ronda Rousey in real life? Hell no. But this isn't real life. This is pro wrestling. Sometimes you just have to play the game.
Yeah. All right. Anything happening in wrestling that you want to share? Because I didn't watch anything this past week.
My boy Seth Rollins is getting cleared right now. We were texting this morning. He's in Orlando getting that shoulder checked out, making sure he's good to go. He's back on TV. We got all of our masked Black and Brave students helping him out. Although Brock Lesnar really took him to task on Monday. If you watch that, he he was dumping people left and right on the top of their head. Very dangerous. But I'm excited for that. Excited to see him come back. Excited to see where he goes, where the character goes. It almost looks like this drip god character might be in the past, and he might get back to being an ass kicker, which I think a lot of people would be excited to see. And I think he'd be excited to do that. He can dress normally on Good Morning Football.
Yeah. He actually hasn't been dressed too weird on Good Morning Football as of late.
Starting to transition into the normally dressed human being.
Now let me ask you: when a storyline tends to go away out of nowhere, is there any way that you could somehow bring it back and have it still be relevant? Because
sure.
I was thinking the other day, like when the Bloodline went away, nobody remembers when it went away.
It did just kind of peter out, right? There was no definitive conclusion to that storyline. Wrestling's beautiful, right? Wrestling is a never-ending story. There's always another page. There's no off season, and you gotta fill time and give people content that they're craving, especially now with the amount of hours they have to write television for every single week between Raw and SmackDown and NXT and now AAA, and you got online content and the Speed Championship and yada, 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 right? There's so much new content every single week. There's certainly room to revisit old storylines that maybe didn't get the proper ending they deserve. So I wouldn't be surprised if you saw a revived Bloodline storyline making its way back to television, especially with all this CM Punk, Roman Reigns stuff that's going down leading into WrestleMania. I would say it's not out of the question to see something happen once again with Roman and the Usos and Solo Sikoa and all those guys.
Yeah, because a lot of people say that Solo Sikoa is the one who ruined it. I thought that he was actually fine in his role. I thought it was actually working when he was the head of the Bloodline, because it was going to set up like a Bloodline Civil War. That was actually going to be kind of a cool thing.
That would have been a much better way to end this, in my opinion. And who knows? We may still come around to it.
All right. I guess we could leave it there. I think next week we could begin. I guess we'll be 3 weeks away from WrestleMania. Like, we pretty much have all the matches already, right?
And we'll be 1 month away from the NFL draft,
which is going to be a whole lot of fun.
Quick, Alf.
Seven top 100 picks. That's going to be
seven top 100 picks, including number 11 and number 30 overall in the first round. Gun to your head. Does John Eric Sullivan use either of those picks on a wide receiver, knowing that the Green Bay way is to not use first-round picks on wide receivers except for Matthew Golden last year?
Number 11, no chance. Number 30, there's a possibility.
All right.
But number 11, no chance. I do think one of those third-round picks could be used on a wide receiver. Like, that's something that can be used.
They have 4 of them.
Yeah. So, they're going to be able to do whatever they want in that third round. In that third round, they're going to be able to take Jeff Hafley's pet pick, and they're going to be able to ask Bobby Slowick, is there anybody that you might, that you have your eye on, and use a third-round pick on that too. So they're going to have a lot of versatility in that third round. They could do basically anything they want to do in that third round. All right, that's it. There is no more. We will be with you again next week as we inched and crawl toward WrestleMania. It seems like their ticket situation has remedied itself, meaning they've lowered prices, which is what always works.
Sometimes you got to do it.
Yeah, I was looking at certain things in Las Vegas for that weekend, and like there's a UFC Fight Night event, cheapest ticket in the fight. And remember, Fight Night is at the UFC Apex Center. It's different. It's kind of like old school wrestling, really, because in the Apex, it seats 820 people. Okay.
Yeah.
The cheapest seat there is $250 for something that weekend. So maybe they're looking at the competition. They're like, you know what? Maybe doing this thing in Vegas 2 years in a row is probably not the best of ideas. Supposedly travel is also down to Vegas. There's less flights being booked now to Vegas. So essentially what you're getting and what they're noticing is that a lot of people that went to last year's WrestleMania are just running it back and coming back again this year. So we'll talk about it next week on the show. And as always, if you want to participate with us, you want to ask, you want to interact with us at any time during the week, you got to go to our Discord, and that's discord.gg/OnlyFans. There it is on the screen. I always put a link to it on every single one of these promos. Join on a desktop, avoid the Apple upcharges. It's $4.99 a month. All right, that's it. There is no more. We will talk to you again next week.